Well, hey guys, it's Darwin, and I just recently got back from a 4-day, 3-night section hike out on the Pacific Crest Trail with my buddy Juice. And I've been getting out and doing a lot of these smaller backpacking trips just kind of off the cuff lately. And it got me thinking about how it's so much easier for me now just to plan a trip out of nowhere, get out to the trail and just start hiking, because over the years after doing it so much, it just becomes like second nature. But obviously it didn't start that way. When my wife and I first got into backpacking years ago, I remember we would spend so much time trying to just figure out all the logistics of a trip, where we were gonna camp every night, how we were gonna get to the start of the trail, where we were gonna finish, the right gear to be using for the trip. And I feel like this can be a pretty big barrier of entry for a lot of people that are just getting into backpacking. And all of these things that I now take for granted after doing so many miles on the trail can really limit a lot of people and kind of scare a lot of people from getting out and just enjoying the backcountry. Well, recently my cousin Adam was here in town, who is new to the world of backpacking, and I decided to sit him down and have a conversation and pick his brain about what some of his top fears, concerns, and barriers were about being a new backpacker. And I feel like I gave him some pretty good advice, but I figured I would share it with you guys to maybe help you along on your backpacking journey for some of those things that you might need more information on and be concerned about just getting out and having a fun trip in the backcountry. For you, what are like some of the top things that are kind of maybe that you have questions about, maybe that you don't feel as confident in getting into backpacking? Like what are some of the main things for you?
Well, yeah, I think I've been a hiker, not backpacking.
Right. Yeah. And I remember always like doing hikes and stuff with
it.
Yeah, but not like getting out and like with a tent and doing like trips.
And a lot of that limitation is, it's money. I don't like when you're a young cat or just get into it, the affordability.
Sure.
And
so gear and just travel, like taking the time off to go to trips and stuff.
Yeah, a bit of both. Yeah.
Okay.
Which is because like that question of do I have hikes? Well, I'm already thinking like, well, my PTO hours and how could I squeeze this around and like that is a barrier. Like because that revolves around my livelihood money.
Sure.
But now I'm getting to the point where I'm like obsessively looking over gear. Yeah. And it's gear. It's like,
which is a big thing, right?
And that's like, we should just get that one out of the way because that's always going to be at the top.
So what are your biggest barriers with gear in particular? Is it knowing what gear to buy, or like does it have to do with money and budget and stuff?
So I will say that now it's like more of what gear to buy and knowing how to navigate to gear that I should maybe be looking at, the navigation through the gear outlet.
Does it feel overwhelming at all? Like whenever you go to look at like, totally. What tent should I buy? What backpack should I buy? Do you find it overwhelming?
Yeah, because now that I like obsessively look at gear, and part of that obsession is because the money that I am very attached to, I want to make sure it's gonna, I can't just blow, which is a barrier too.
Yeah, be a good investment.
And so I have 5 tabs open and I'm obsessively like, well, this weight is 0.6 ounce and that weight is 0.8. I want to add that differently.
Yeah.
That is hard to navigate. It's hard to know the areas to go to find that gear. And it's hard to get into have the base knowledge to know what gear to look for.
Gear is a big barrier for a lot of people, and that's because there's so much of it and everybody has their opinion on what the best is. But something that everybody has to realize that is getting into backpacking is something I've been saying for years. No matter if it's a tent, a backpack, a pair of shoes, or a cook system, all gear is subjective.
It's all subjective.
And it's all subjective. It's all subjective. It's all subjective. There's no such thing as the best backpack, the perfect tent, or the GOAT of whatever backpacking gadget that's supposed to make your time out on trail more efficient. There never has been, and there never will be. The truth is, only you know what is going to be the best gear for you. Only you know what your comfort levels are, or what type of hiker you are, and what your needs are on the trail. I know people don't want to hear this, but the truth is, you have to buy something, you have to take it out on trail and go through trial and error and figure out if it's gonna work for you. Just because a piece of gear is my best piece of gear doesn't mean that it's gonna be your best piece of gear. So I think the best thing to do is you can watch gear reviews and you can read articles, and you can look at specs and comparisons to get your information, but don't take any of it as gospel. You have to make a list of what it is that you're looking for your type of backpacking. Figure out what type of backpacker you want to be. Do you want to go out and spend 4 to 6 months on a trail through hiking it like me and do big miles and worry about being as ultralight as possible? Well, your gear selection is going to be different versus if you're somebody that just wants to get out every other weekend and do a small backpacking trip with your friends or your family. So figure out what it is that you want out of a piece of gear, then watch your reviews, read your articles, and do your own research, and figure out what it is that you need. Is gear expensive? Yes. But does it have to be? No. There's so much of it out there at so many different entry levels. Whether you are on a budget or you have all the money in the world to spend, you can buy a tent or a backpack or a cook system or whatever at kind of any price level. And then you have to get out on the trail and you have to use it and figure out, is it gonna work for you in the long run? So that's the best advice I can give to anybody with the whole gear thing, is watch things, read things, look at specs, but keep in mind what it is that you are looking for, not what I'm looking for, not what I think is the best. You have to put your own opinion together out of trial and error and figure out what's going to make you more comfortable and more efficient in the backcountry.
Okay, so then moving from that, so gear, what do you think is one of the next big challenges for you being a newbie and getting into backpacking that you feel uncertain about or are not comfortable with?
Starting off,
yeah.
I feel like I don't experience this, but talking with my wife, I feel like maybe she has a little, or we've talked around this topic a little, is the social uncomfortability sometimes that you face getting into like a new sport or activity.
Okay.
Like, I guess a social judgment, knowing that you're new to it and you're on trail, you see someone.
On trail or online?
Both, a bit of both. I
Okay.
mean, you feel it. I mean, it can go into your overwhelmingness that's happening. So the analogy is like you join a gym and maybe you don't have much gym experience. It's your first time in the gym. You don't really know how to operate the machines and you feel like everyone is looking at you.
Okay.
And it's a mindset. It's an insecurity. And I do have a lot of insecurity sometimes getting into a new thing.
Well, I'm sure. I mean, everybody does.
Right. Insecurity is definitely a barrier of getting into it. And it's something that I think I've struggled with. I think it's natural to struggle with.
All right, I sort of get this one, and I can relate that anytime you get into anything, you're always worried about what are other people gonna think of me doing this new thing. And I hate to use the old cliche term, but I feel like it fits here, and that is hike your own hike. And not in the sense of, well, hike your own hike, I'll do what I want. More in the sense of worry about you and what you're doing. Are you happy with the gear that you have on the trail? Then who cares? Are you comfortable with the amount of miles that you're hiking every day? Well, then be comfortable with that. Don't worry about what other people are thinking about you on the trail. Why would you? The thing is you're out there at the same time as they are doing the exact same thing in the same place, so you're on the same level. In all of the 8 years and 14,000 miles that I've hiked, I have never once had somebody talk down to me because of the type of gear that I was using or where I was camping or the miles that I was hiking or any of that, because all that stuff is stripped away when you're on the trail and you're all equal. Everybody is equal in the backcountry because you're all doing the same thing and out there enjoying the same thing. All that stuff that you see on the internet, in comments on Facebook groups and Reddit forums is not the way it is out on trail. I can tell you that 100%. People judge people online of the gear that they're using and the miles that they're hiking and what they're wearing and stuff, but that's because people have nothing else better to do than to sit at home and judge others on what they're doing. But out on the trail, it doesn't happen, at least not in my experience. So get out, enjoy the trail, don't worry about what someone else thinks of you. Do what's gonna make you happy and comfortable and enjoy the backcountry.
You brought up navigation.
Yeah, planning your
planning.
trail. Yeah,
Okay.
trip planning, planning your trail, navigation, resources to look.
So you mean like as far as an app or something?
For the actual navigation
Okay.
portion of it, I want more resources in that area, and especially trip planning. Like, how do I know I want to start at this area versus that location?
Sure.
If anything, I'm trying to base it off just water stops, and I don't
Okay.
really know what else. There's
Right.
like a scare risk factor that's associated
Yes.
with planning trips that's sometimes hard to overcome.
Trip planning and navigation can for sure be one of the most daunting things about just getting into backpacking, and honestly, it can be pretty daunting for people that have been doing it for a while. For years, people have asked me how I plan my trips, where I get my information from, how I figure out my mileage, and then how I navigate when I get out onto the trail. And what I can tell you is right now is probably the easiest time in history on figuring all this out and then safely navigating the backcountry because of the technology that is at our fingertips. Now, with that being said, I think that every backpacker and anybody that's going to spend time in the backcountry should learn how to use a map and a compass because it's a very important skill to have, and this can always fail. But again, learning that new skill can be daunting. It takes a while to learn how to do that, and some people just want to figure out the basics of just getting out there. And I recently made a video where I showed how I planned, routed, and navigated a trip in the Grand Canyon. If you guys didn't get a chance to check that video out, where I kind of walked through step by step, I'll put it up here. I'll also leave a link down below. But basically in that video, I showed how I used something as basic as Google to just type in and find out where the best backpacking trips were in my area. And then I used something like a hiking app, a navigation app, to actually route it and then navigate when I get out on the trail. Now, over the years, I've used a lot of different navigation apps, but the one that I started using in the last 6 months, especially because I'm just doing all of these random last-minute backpacking trips, and it makes it easier on me, is an app called Onyx Backcountry. What I really like about Onyx is some of the features that just make it easy for me to get out kind of last minute, like the Discover feature. So you can just kind of hit it, it'll pick up where you're at, your GPS location, and then it will show you all the different trails that are around you. Some are day hikes, but some are bigger hikes that you can turn into backpacking trips. So like here's a 15-mile trip on the Arizona Trail. If I wanted to, I could get out for a night. It shows me the trail. It tells me what the elevation gain is, the losses, the high point, the low point, the difficulty level, and then it gives me photos of it. It gives me different information if a permit's required. And probably the best feature on this that I really like is the weather feature. So I can plan accordingly for what my trip's gonna be. Am I gonna have to worry about rain? Am I gonna have to worry about snow, heat, cold? So then I know what gear I need to bring on that trip. And then other features that are great for actually planning and routing a trip, like the whole Snap To feature. So if I wanna start planning a trip, I can actually just hit a point, I can build a route, and then I can hit another point and it will snap to, and it will tell me exactly how many miles are between my points. So I can figure out how many miles I wanna hike during the day. Or things like the whole 3D mapping feature, which is really cool because I can actually see the trail and I can see if I'm gonna be camping on a ridge or in a valley. I can look at my entire trip and plan accordingly. Now, if you guys are interested in kind of figuring that out for yourself and using features like that whole Discover feature or the weather feature, or if you've just been wanting to get into planning and routing your own trips, I actually recently partnered with Onyx Backcountry. They started supporting me and the channel, and you can actually get 20% off of the subscription to the app by using my link in the description box. So I'll put that down there as well. But I've really enjoyed using this because it just makes it so much easier for me to get out last minute and not have to worry about all of those logistics of figuring all of that out. It just makes it easier to get out and enjoy the trail and be safe navigating in the backcountry. So check that out if you're interested. Also check out that video where I show step-by-step how I used Google and then something like Onyx to plan and route my trip. But again, right now is easier than it ever has been to get out and really enjoy the backcountry.
So like I have my trip and the logistics plan. When I'm on trail, I feel like I have an issue with selecting the right campsite. Like sometimes with DNR, you have to register with them so you know where you're going to go.
Yeah.
But if you don't
like
have
a national
that
park or something, you have to go select campsites.
Right. And I didn't have that when I did the Blue Mountains out in western Idaho, eastern Oregon, that range. And
you're just picking random campsites every day.
Well, something that looks mildly flat with not a lot of rocks.
Sure.
An issue I had though when we did that and why I felt like that wasn't the greatest is I had such bad tent condensation. Yeah, it was bad. Like I was soaked that morning. It was awful. Is that because the place that we picked? And how do you mitigate an issue like that with picking your campsite?
Campsite selection is another big one that I take for granted because I've been doing it for so long and I know what to look for as far as a perfect camp spot comes from. One of Adam's biggest questions was how he mitigates condensation. And where I made a video recently where I talked about camp hacks and some of the things that I do to find the perfect camp spot as far as a good flat piece of ground, something I didn't go into was actual location and something I think about a lot when I'm out on the trail. So I look for low points and high points. I typically like to camp a little higher out of a valley or away from a stream or water source because in the morning, moisture usually settles low, and I know if I camp next to a stream in a little valley, I'm probably gonna wake up wet with condensation. But I also try to think about, is the weather gonna be okay for the night? Because if there's gonna be a thunderstorm, if it's gonna rain or be windy, I don't wanna be too high and be exposed. So it's a bit of a balancing act. The other thing that I look for is how safe the area is. I wanna make sure that I'm not camping in a burn area where there could be fallen trees, and I don't wanna camp under a dead limb just in case the wind picks up and a limb could fall into my tent. So I really think it comes down to surveying the area and figuring out where is gonna be the safest and most efficient place to camp for the night. Again, what I will typically do is I'll find my last water source for the day, I'll get water, and then I'll probably hike another half mile to a mile away from that because I know that in the morning, condensation is gonna be a little heavier next to water, so I like to get up away from that water source to where there's more airflow so I can stay dry throughout the night and making sure that there's no limbs around me. It comes with time, but just think about and look at the location and think about those things when you're selecting your campsite.
Can we talk about a really insecure personal issue that I have with hiking? I don't know if you have this or have it experienced it. I have such a fear of pooping. It's so bad, man. I have a poop fear.
There's a lot of people that have a poop fear.
Dude, I have such a severe one.
There's a lot of people. You're not the only one. You might have to poop and somebody might see you poop.
That is one of my worst fears.
Pooping. Admittedly, this has never been a problem for me, but I know there's a lot of people out there that this is a big barrier for. People worried about what happens if I have to go to the bathroom when I'm out in the woods. It's going to happen. I know a lot of hikers that will go out and try to not go to the bathroom until they finish their trip, which is crazy unhealthy. But odds are you're gonna have to poop in the backcountry. And the best thing that you can do is be prepared with good leave no trace principles and the proper tools to be able to bury your turd and take care of your business on the trail. Making sure that you're 200 feet away from a trail, a water source, or a campsite to be able to dig your cat hole. Then digging your cat hole 6 to 8 inches deep with a trowel. Always making sure you have one of these in your pack. Do your business, and then use something like toilet paper or a bidet, what I use. But if you use toilet paper, pack it out. Take a Ziploc bag and put your poopy paper in that. Yeah, that's why I use a bidet. I don't want to pack out my poop paper. Don't leave it in the backcountry, folks. And making sure that you're burying it up and covering your tracks so it's not getting uncovered and flowing back onto the trail. Gross. Now, as far as a little tip and trick of what I do when I'm going to the bathroom on the trail, if I have to go to the bathroom, I'll actually take my trekking pole, I'll stick it in the ground next to the trail, lean my pack up against it, grab my trowel and my bidet, then I'll hike 200 feet off of the trail. And this lets people know coming down the trail that there's somebody that's going to the bathroom so they can keep their eyes on the trail. Another thing is if you have to go to the bathroom and you're on a switchback, if you have somebody else with you, you can have them stand guard. So if you're going to the bathroom where you can't really get 200 feet that far off the trail, if it's an emergency, have them stand with their back to you a little bit away and tell people that are coming up the trail that there's somebody going to the bathroom. Folks, it's just something that's gonna happen. Odds are you're gonna have to go to the bathroom when you're out there. So have the proper tools, understand good leave no trace, and just deal with it. Poop happens.
Something we didn't cover.
Yeah.
If you were to look back at your younger self, you're like dealing with existential dread and want to change up your life, you're going to do the AT, what would you tell yourself? Something we didn't cover.
Everything that I just said.
No, we didn't cover it. So it has to be something we didn't cover.
No, I mean, but it is the same thing. It's that like all this.
You wouldn't be like,
experience.
yo, that one shirt, you don't need that shirt. That's or like, remember to take this with you, idiot.
No, because you need to go through trial and error. You need to make mistakes.
Yeah.
You need to go out on your first backpacking trip with too much stuff in your pack, with the wrong tent, with not, the right amount of clothes. You need to be cold your first night. You need to wake up wet from condensation the next day. You need to accidentally, not to put yourself in danger.
Oh, this is
but you need to get.
You had a tagline you used to tell me. This is it. Embrace the suck.
Embrace the suck. You
have
to.
So you would tell your younger self, embrace the suck.
Just do it.
Okay.
Just because that is how you're going to learn. You have to make mistakes. You have to.
Yeah.
You have to. You're never going to get it right the first
time.
And
some of those mistakes are really going to suck. And don't quit.
Oh,
okay,
yeah. They're absolutely going to suck. But just like, don't let it detour you from what you can do with it. Make the mistake and use that to learn how to do it for you. The comfortable way to do it for you. What's going to work for you to make you comfortable in the backcountry. That's the best thing. Yeah. Just a learning experience, man.
Cool. All right. I'll go and learn and
poop in front of people.
Stop bringing that up. Thank you for the advice on it. Again, I'm like just starting this, getting more and more into it. I mean, I do have that connection with you that I like. It helps to be able to reach out, and thanks for letting me text you silly questions.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you let me come on and just ask my silly questions in front of a lot of folks and tell a lot of folks about my fear of pooping in public and appreciate it.
Yeah, you're not the only one. You're not alone. It's everybody.
All right, so there you go. Some of my advice for some of Adam's top fears and concerns and barriers getting into backpacking. Hopefully some of this advice can help you as you get into backpacking and on your backpacking journey. Again, if you want to check out some of those videos I mentioned or check out Onyx, I'll leave those links down below. But just know that everybody goes through this learning process and it's all trial and error. You just got to get out there, you got to make mistakes, and you have to learn as you go and know what's going to work for you. Guys, I hope you're doing well. I hope you're taking care of yourselves. I hope you're taking care of each other. I love you, and as always, thanks for watching.